Hi, this is Lainey Cameron. Today I'm here with Mel Greenberg, and we're going to talk about her novel, Running with Your Eyes Closed, or Our Eyes Closed. So Mel, first off, I have to say I've been peeking at the reviews for this, and I'm just going to say right off some of the lovely words that I see in this book's review. People talk about how it's a tale of rediscovery, reconnection between a husband and a wife, beautifully written, moving. And then I had the experience reading this book of sensual and spicy. This book is hot.
Yeah, it is.
And it's interesting because it could be classified as a romance in that there is a romantic storyline between the husband and the wife, but it's really more about going through a midlife crisis and reconnecting and being an empty nester. And so I think it's really interesting that it's spicy as a book. You don't actually see that often. Normally books go kind of one way or the other. And
Yes.
so I really want to hear about some of the decisions you made and how to write this, because that really intrigued me. It was really interesting to me as I read it.
You.
So let's start with tell me a bit about the book and the inspiration behind it.
So it is, it's book one in the series, the Empty Nested series, and the impetus was drawn from my own experiences, the perfect storm of becoming an empty nester, midlife, turning 50, getting cancer, all at once. And then other friends and everyone going through the same thing, and people that I interviewed, and the time in life. And from a woman's standpoint, you spend your years taking care of your family, and whether you work in the house or out of the home, and all of a sudden you lose your job, the aspect of raising your children, and it brings into question a lot where your marriage is, if you are married, and what you want from your future. And these are things that began the character of Samantha. She really was wrestling with what was next for her, and through it was her marriage, and in question. And there was a lot of romance, and through this part of the book, it was very necessary because their relationship was the beginning of the story and where they wanted it to go. And when you're lost, sometimes you often grasp to whatever thing that you can do to hold something together. And they felt their life of 25 years and everything that they had known slipping through their fingers. And they really, though they weren't sure they wanted it, they weren't ready to let it go. And their physical relationship and their emotional attachment was a very strong factor throughout their relationship. And so that is what, it was an important glue, and it was a very essential part of this book.
And, part of what I loved is often when you read a book with older protagonists, and I'll put myself in this category, I'm 48. Often
You're
when you read a book like that, I'm a baby. Oh, thank you.
I'm 61.
Oh, I love it. I love it. But like the older the character gets, the more likely they take the on-screen sex out of the book. Like I've noticed that when I read romance novels that have older protagonists, very often they kind of take out all the sexy. And so I just love that you put that all in there, and it was on camera.
I sent the book to my 91-year-old aunt, and I said, I just want to warn you, this is very steamy. And she wrote back to me. She's a very hip chick, and she said, I'm old, I'm not dead. And then she got back to me, and she goes, it was the greatest read. I loved it. Even if you hadn't written it, I would still love it. But I love that I'm old, not dead, and we are. You know what? We still have. And when Wall Street and Madison Avenue get that, I will be much happier. We have wants and needs. Just because we've passed certain thresholds, those desires are very real.
Yeah. So well done for breaking with kind of the mold that I've seen of how people write books. So, and let's take a quick peek at a review here. This is a beautiful review that I'd love to share from Kirkus. And I love that they capture so many elements of your book in this one review here. They talk about the Tuscany region, that it's in Italy. Pretty much the whole book takes place in Italy. They're in Venice. They're in Florence, one of my favorite cities. You do a wonderful job with the descriptions of Florence. I really felt like I was there in certain restaurants at certain points. And I thought this captured well this idea that it's all around Samantha's choices and how she vacillates between the different paths to take. Mm-hmm. There is a little bit of a storyline of cheating, which I'll put out there. It's not a secret, I don't think, in the book, but dealing with that infidelity, which many of us go through during our lifetimes. And how do you navigate your way through that relationship when you've got so much history together and maybe you do want to make it work, and making choices about what do you want going forwards after you deal with something like that. I thought it dealt with so many complex topics in there.
Well, thank you. And I think, to that point, you don't get to these stages of our lives without a lot of baggage, good, bad, indifferent, and trying to maneuver those and figure out what you want, and what looked great at 25 may not look so good at 50. Or if you are in a relationship where you've lost certain things and you can get back to that. And and that they were striving to figure out if they could in fact get back to where they, what brought them together in the first place. And I think those are legitimate questions in many areas of our lives, whether it's work or romance, that we ask as we start to turn these chapters in midlife and 50 and over.
Isn't that true? Mm-hmm. And did the book change a lot from the original as you went through revising and editing? Were there any big changes that you had to go through with it?
Well, it did, from the aspect of I had conceived this as a trilogy. And so within my head, I had the exact 1, 2, 3, the arc of it all, and it was good to go. But as book one was gaining momentum and feedback and readers were sharing their stories, and it became very clear that it was Samantha's story, and they wanted to know where she was going in her life. And her story's not over. And so then that evolved into a series, and it was easy to do from the idea that she's a very strong, fulfilling character. And what was great in book one is that we really kind of see her come to her strength, and she, find her voice. And so that wasn't expected, and it really came after the fact, but I'm really glad it did, because there is so much that she has yet to accomplish, and I'm excited to explore all those.
Awesome. Yeah, you leave the book open in terms of where's she going to end up living, and how are they going to work through what they both do in their lives.
Well, that's a cliffhanger, and those pieces are put together pretty quickly as we begin book two, and I will share that book two. She is in Melbourne, Australia. So
and is book two, what's the timing on book two? Is it out? Is it coming?
It's not out, and it was due this year, 21. I was actually going to be I should be down there now finishing it in Australia, but with COVID, a lot of things changed. And I actually went back and revisited a lot of the storyline, and I felt that it was important to address our world now. And I was able to do that because of my own deadlines. And it just didn't make sense to continue the way the storyline was originally conceived in book two. And I'm really excited and really proud of the direction that it has taken. So hopefully late 2021, but if not early 2022, it'll be out. But I'm aiming for this year.
I think I'm on a similar timeline with mine. People keep asking me, and I'm like, probably 22 if I'm realistic, but maybe late 21. We'll see.
Yeah. And it's you know what? It's all good. This the past year and a half has shown me that whatever is going to happen and needs to happen exactly will happen, and it's all good.
Right. And we don't really control a lot of the things we thought we did.
That's exactly right. Hard thing to get to.
Yeah. Well, while we're on that topic of kind of control and revisions, what about writing advice? Do you have any advice for folks who are kind of trying to do what you've done here and bring out a book that's getting great reviews?
I would say don't over edit, and I would apply that to yourself or your dreams. You're writing, just write it and then go back, or do your edits before you get it out to a professional editor. But also your dreams. If you think you can do this and you have there's a reason that you've come to your computer or your journal to write, there's a story to be told. So don't give up on it. Do it. And then the rest will fall into place.
Great advice. Resilience is so important. And it's so hard because you're learning, but you also have to have enough belief in your own work and your capability to do this. It's kind of this weird mix of being humble, but also not giving up and not letting anyone tell you can't do this thing. So it's kind of hard to balance that sometimes.
Well, it is. And I think as creatives, whether we're writers or musicians or, in these fields, that inner voice that says, are you kidding? You're not that good. You shouldn't be doing this. But why not? Why on earth not? And if not you, who else? So again, if it's come to you, tell it. That story needs to be told.
That's great. I named her. I call her the "You're a fraud" banshee, and she screams at you, "You're a fraud! You're a fraud! You don't know what you're doing!" And you have to tell her to shut the heck up.
I'm Jewish, and Vilde Chaya is Yiddish for crazy woman. So mine is my little Vilde Chaya.
So what about reading? Have you had a chance to read anything good recently?
Well, I've been obsessed with the Rosie Project, and it's a trilogy, and it's actually set in Melbourne. And it's just beautiful, witty writing, and it's a debut. and the gentleman that wrote it is just a brilliant writer. I highly recommend it. It's funny, it's heartwarming and heartbreaking, and incredibly well done. I love it.
That's a great recommendation. I think I've read only the first of the trilogy, and it was really well done.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a beautiful surprise. I just picked up the book, hadn't heard much about it. I've had it on my shelf for a while, and being home, I got off my Kindle and went to I like the kinesthetic touch of a book, and pulled that out and could not stop. I mean, I didn't stop reading it. I drove everyone in my family crazy. Like, I'll be there later. Got to finish.
And you made me realize I should ask you a question that I normally ask at the beginning, which is, where are you physically? Where are you joining me from?
I am in Tucson, Arizona.
Cool. Cool. And I'm in Mexico. So we're both in kind of the sunshine zone, even though it's not been so much recently.
Yeah, we actually, this weekend, we're having quite a nice swift upswing. It's going to be beautiful.
So before we wrap up, anything that we missed that you want to say or bring up before I show folks how they can connect with you?
I want to thank you so much, Lainey, for having me. Also as an author, it's sometimes a bit of a struggle to get out in front of people and do interviews, and they do get easier. So I would encourage everyone to really get out there for themselves. But this community, I really appreciate our writing community, and I thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. And I love doing this, and I get to meet fabulous authors like you all the time. So it's great. So let's look at how folks can connect with you real fast before we go. So you're at try again, Eleni. You're at Mel G. Berg on Instagram, MELGBERG on Instagram. And melmediallc.com is your website, where you have some really fascinating blog posts I noticed as well. I was looking at some of those last night. You share some really interesting things.
Thank you. Yeah, that's my beautiful outlet. I love it.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Ciao.